the question of like, what does it mean to be human is going to take everybody by storm. We're already dysregulated on this whole, what does all of this mean and where is it all going? We're going to struggle with answers because they're not going to be answers. There's going to be questions. Uncertainty tends to create dysregulation. But I think what we're going to enter is not a time period where every single individual is dysregulated. We're going to enter a time period where the macrocosm is. Right?
Yes.
Even if the microcosm is not. It's going to hit us so hard, we're going to see it all around us. And I don't know if we're going to know what to do about it unless we get tools and resources to do something about it.
Hey, welcome back to the Personality Hacker Podcast. My name is Joe Mark Witt.
And I'm Antonia Dodge.
So, Antonia, we just did a recent series on the podcast talking about dysregulation.
Yes.
I was just on the YouTube channel last night answering some comments and talking to people, and there's a lot of really interesting feedback on these several episodes where we go through basically taking personality theory and typology and using it as a map to find where we are dysregulated in our lives. And we talked about it, I think it was 5 episodes. I think we laid down the tracks on one, and then we went through each of the 4 areas. So we talked about those 4 areas being sensing or sensation, your body. We talked about the 2 cognitive functions that, connected to that. I'm going to go real quick. I know I'm not slowing down for somebody.
We also called it somatic.
Somatic. We talked about the 2 emotional ways we can get dysregulated for the emotions, the emotional channel.
And those relate to feeling functions.
Right. Cognitive dysregulation. We talked about the thinking functions. And existential regulation, we talked about the intuitive functions and how we're starting to see personality types, particularly Jungian personality type, where we know how we learn information and make decisions. We're learning with our clients, with our own personal work, and we're seeing a map emerge that this is going to be an incredible way to diagnose, understand, and address dysregulation in our lives and other lives. So whether you're a practitioner like a therapist or a coach, you're helping people understand and regulate, or you yourself want to regulate and apply this toward your own self, we believe, this is what's burgeoning here, we believe that personality is the best map to do this because it shows us the 4 areas of life that we all basically have a sense of inside of ourselves.
Yep. And it addresses something that usually gets ignored. And I've noticed this actually, the Enneagram was the first time I sort of sussed this out, which is most models have crossover between sensing, feeling, and thinking. Like in Enneagram, they call it like the triads, the body, the heart, and the mind triad. But I'm like, so where is intuition in the Enneagram, right? And I went, intuition is what gave birth to the model.
But it's not self-referenced.
Exactly.
It doesn't reference itself inside the model.
And most things don't actually. Most things that were given, like that intuition and patterning gave birth to, forget to add the very instrument that observed the pattern.
Yes.
It forgets to weave it in. And I think that's why Jung's model was so powerful is he wasn't just a fish in water. You know the old joke where like the older fish swims up to the younger fish and he's like, hey kids, how's the water? And he swims off and the 2 younger fish look at each other and they're like, what's water?
Yeah.
Right. And so
I've never heard that before, but that's a great joke.
Oh yeah, it's a great one.
Or a great story.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's
fable.
like
It's a fable of old.
Apocryphal, if you will. And it's a great way of sort of pointing out that we tend to forget the instruments that we're to weave in the instruments we're using, right? We just see them or we experience them as fish in water. Like when you're using intuition to pattern a model like that, it's very easy to just use intuition but not weave it in. And Jung's model was so powerful because he remembered to put it in. And so I think on the conversation or the subject of regulation and dysregulation, of all the different types or styles or the ways that it's presented, somatic, emotional, and even cognitive will find its way in there.
Yes.
Although cognitive is spoken about a lot less frequently. But what's never mentioned is intuitive dysregulation. And we do become existentially dysregulated, right?
Yeah, well, the whole planet is right now. So
yeah, basically.
I mean, we don't have to look very far to understand what we're talking about.
Exactly.
I think with the advent of the monetary system kind of like up in suspended animation, we're waiting to see what's going to happen with that. How are we going to proceed forward? Is the American dollar going to be the reserve currency? Is something else like Bitcoin going to be the reserve currency going forward for global distribution of finance? And then we also have this artificial intelligence on the scene. So I think people are having this sense of like, something is going on. I don't know what it is. I just saw an interview with Sam Altman. I don't know when it's from. So the founder and the creator of OpenAI, he's on this interview, and with the interviewer, it's just a small clip online, and he was like saying, I don't know what's going on. We don't know what's going on, but something weird's happening. He said a lot of people are talking about a simulation that we're inside of, and I can see things cracking on the edges, and I'm just thinking, that sounds so weird. Part of me is like, come on, man, that sounds nuts. And another part of me is like, that's not that crazy to think that maybe we're inside of that fish and water situation. We're starting to realize like there's this water maybe. Then we're like, what's water? We're all kind of collectively figuring out there's some reality going on than we can necessarily perceive. And I think it's now causing us to be existentially and intuitively dysregulated, because that puts us on this intuitive space.
Right. Because the intuitive space, I mean, the word existential comes from, I mean, its root is in existence. So any question that is around the philosophical aspects of existence, right? Like that's what intuition is deeply attuned to. So when we ask questions around the nature of existence, and like with AI and at its heels, robotics, right? And those two things are going to merge, and then we're going to have like people, right? That aren't people, but there are people. The question of like, what does it mean to be human is going to take everybody by storm. And we're already dysregulated on this whole, like, what does all of this mean, and where's it all going? And it's going to hit us so hard, and we're going to struggle with answers, because they're not going to be answers. There's going to be questions. And so I remember...
By the way, I just want to ask can you hold that thought?
Yeah.
If you're listening or watching right now, I do want to ask, how do you see this? Like, I just posited that people are existentially dysregulated. They're a little nervous about what's coming. Maybe, the way we produce energy, the way we do finance, and the way we do like artificial intelligence and get our work done. But maybe I'm wrong. Maybe you don't feel that way. Maybe a lot of people don't feel dysregulated there. They feel very confident and calm about the future, and you have a way of thinking about it. I'd love for you to leave in the comments, how do you think about the coming future? How do you represent it to yourself? Do you have frameworks or models that you use now to calm yourself or make you feel like it's going to be okay? How do you apply meaning to the future? And maybe it is that you're terrified and you're dysregulated around it, or you found a strategy for regulating yourself in the midst of it. I want to know that. Let's get a discussion started around this in the comments. Make your voice heard. So come over and let us know what you're thinking. Continue, please.
Yeah, well, to piggyback off of that statement, there's a lot of people who are not dysregulated yet because they're not thinking about it. And then there's a batch of people who are thinking about it and are super dysregulated because their own personal livelihoods maybe are at threat, or maybe just the unknown. Because there's a distinction between unknown and uncertain. In fact, people who lead with intuition are not uncertain around unknowns. They are fascinated by them, and they pursue them in terms of curiosity and fascination. Now, that doesn't mean that a person who's leading with intuition is never existentially dysregulated. I mean, I've gone through time periods of that myself. And so it's like, it's not to say that we never will be. It's just uncertainty and unknown are not the same thing. People who have intuition further down in their stack usually are a little bit more uncertain about the unknown. But unknown and uncertain aren't the same thing. So just because we're entering a time period of the unknown doesn't mean that we have to be uncertain. And of course, a person can be uncertain without being dysregulated. It's just uncertainty tends to create dysregulation. But I think what we're going to enter is not a time period where every single individual is dysregulated. We're going to enter a time period where the macrocosm is, right?
Yes.
Even if the microcosm is not. And so on a macrocosmic level, we're going to see it all around us. And I don't know if we're going to know what to do about it unless we get tools and resources to do something about it.
You keep talking as if this is something in the future, that we're mass dysregulated as a culture.
Yeah, well,
and I'm thinking, do you not watch do you not know what's going on in the world right now?
Yeah,
do you not watch the news or see online anything? Like,
I guess the word would be unprecedented, though. This is not what we're dealing with right now. If you think about it in terms of like generational theory, this is not unprecedented.
Sure.
Like we experienced something like this at the end of the last Cyclical, and we experienced something like this at the end of the Cyclical before that.
Yeah, World War II. We had the Great Depression leading to World War II. The whole world's in conflict.
Yeah, and then before that was the Civil War, and then before that was the Revolutionary War. So if you've got a model like generational theory that talks about these 80 to 100 year spans called Cyclicals, and how each Cyclical ends with winter and a total war, it's like this is not unprecedented dysregulation. This is like expected. In fact, a book was written about this called The Fourth Turning like 20 something years ago or 30 years ago that predicted all of it. So it's not unprecedented. What I'm talking about in the next Saculum.
By the way, we've recorded podcasts on all of that stuff.
So many.
Good stuff.
Yeah,
you go
great
back
stuff.
in our on the YouTube channel or on our website, personalityhacker.com.
Look up generational theory.
Generational theory. We talk about generational theory and lay down the tracks of what it is and how it plays out. But we also talk with our friend Christian. We talked about the shadow of each generation.
Right.
I thought that was a really interesting conversation. Whether I agree with what we all came up with there, it's very stimulant of thought. It kind of gets me thinking around how generational cohorts have a certain energy, but also a shadow side to them as well.
Right. Yeah. Well, and generational theory can sort of be partitioned into two primary topics that end up overlaying on top of each other. One of them is like the archetypes and characteristics of specific generations,
Sure.
Like millennials and boomers and Xers and silents and greatest generation and blah, 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 blah. And so that's interesting all by itself. It's like, how do different generations approach the world and how do they see things and how do they interact and engage? That's sort of the relational aspect. But what's really fascinating is to see that living on top of a cycle, right?
Yeah.
Like a cycle of time periods and events and 4 different what's called turnings.
There's a pattern to it
that keep happening over and over and over again, that these generations sort of like the reason why they have the characteristics they do is because they are traveling along a timeline of a cycle, right? That keeps happening over and over. So anyway, the point of all that is the time period in which we're living is not unprecedented. It might feel like it is because we're experiencing it in a new way, but this has happened before. What I'm talking about on a macrocosmic level of existential dysregulation, I think will be unprecedented, because I think what we're going to experience is the biggest change that has ever hit humans since we went from hunting gathering to agriculture. But the last time, like when humans experienced that, it was like a 10,000 year process to go from hunting gathering to agriculture.
Yeah.
Or to be basically an agricultural, society globally. And this time we're going to experience a change as big, but it's not going to take 10,000 years. It's going to take like 10 years. And so I think that is unprecedented.
Well, we did have a transition in the 1800s. The 19th century, we went from an agrarian society worldwide to a not capitalistic, what's it called? Industrial. Mm-hmm. So an industrial model with factories, mass production, machinery, metal.
Yeah.
Like we definitely have like a very different world than my great-great-great-grandfather who like came over here in the early 1700s or earlier with his family.
Yeah.
Like they were born into a very agrarian place here in Pennsylvania and in this area. And now I'm a descendant of that years later, and I've grown up in the industrial model, and we're about to enter into probably the digital space. And it's, like you said, maybe 30 to 40 years of the industrial switch.
Yeah.
Like, 1870-ish maybe to like 1910 or something.
Yeah.
And then the decline of it. And now the digital is going to happen probably in 5 to 10 years.
Yeah. Well, and we're at the, like, whenever you see an exponential growth curve and you see a hockey stick up.
Yeah.
We're like that moment before it just spikes up. We're like right before that.
Yes.
And so it's like, what does that look like? And it's like, I guess we got to find out.
So when you look
and
out,
that is unprecedented.
So when you look out at the world, so I would love to know, again, where are you at in this process? How are you seeing kind of things evolving in front of you? Are you concerned about them if you're listening or watching right now? Or are you like, no, it's going to be totally fine. I have my plans. Everything's going to be great.
Yeah.
And again, I'm not trying to get people to whip up into like, this is terrible. I'm not looking for negativity. I'm just looking for how are you managing that?
Yeah. Well, and I'm not necessarily negative about it. Like personally, I'm not. I would say that, there's a curse that says, may you live in interesting times.
Yes.
And I guess we were all cursed. We're living in interesting times.
Exciting times too.
Yeah.
A lot of new things are happening.
Well, and that's the thing, is that it's supposed to be a curse because interesting times almost always includes conflict and all sorts of, changes and having to upgrade your thinking really fast and all of that.
Yeah.
But I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing. In fact, I'm very optimistic and positive that a lot of these technological changes are going to solve problems that humans have been contending with since the dawn of man. Now, I think it's also going to create a whole bunch of new problems, right? The phrase is, you don't solve problems, you trade them.
So like clean drinking water caused more problems is what you're saying? Like we solved that as humans, and you're saying that we didn't actually solve that. We traded that for another higher level problem as a humanity.
Well, the systems, I mean, I wouldn't necessarily say that water caused more problems like clean water did, but I would say that the industrial age solved a problem of dirty water, but the industrial age also created problems of dirtiness.
So that's an interesting point as we think about this. And you were tagging something, so I don't want to jump too far, but I just realized on a micro level, like water, like somebody could argue back. It's like, that's not true, Antonia. We solved the problem with dirty, clean drinking water, and everybody can have drinking water clean if they just know how to do it. Now, we haven't had wide distribution yet, but if we did, we could solve that. And you're saying, well, it's more systemic than that. It's not the one thing. Yes, that was solved, but when that got solved, what did it undo over here or cause over here?
Yeah.
And what system was running that solved that also has exhaust or bad results on another channel? So it's not just one channel is what I hear you saying.
Well, yeah. I mean, it's like what made clean drinking water an inevitable emergent? What was the system running that made that? Yeah. And then what was another inevitable emergent that exact same system also made that isn't all good news? Yeah. And so you're looking at the system running.
I have one of these. It's a little bit of a joke, but when self-driving cars are mandatory, because eventually the governments of the world aren't going to let us drive them ourselves. It's going to be too dangerous because a machine connected to the grid is going to be smarter than any individual with their single perspective because it can see all other cars on the road and coordinate in mass. So it's inevitable that driving a car will be like riding a horse someday. I go to a horse arena and I pay somebody to go horseback riding, right? Because it's like a boutique thing. I don't get around town on a horse anymore. It's very rare that happens in the United States, or at least in the West anymore.
Yes, but you should, because you would look very striking.
Cars are going to be very similar in that we're going to be all self-driving, and you'll probably have to pay extra to go to like a racetrack or something, or a special off-roading to drive your own vehicle, just like going horseback riding. And I realize the problem this is going to cause is all of us perceivers can never be late for anything ever again. Yes. We can't speed. Like there's no way to trick the we can't like just go faster and go through traffic because the grid's going to force us to make sure we're more judger scheduled all the time.
It already is happening.
We're going to have to like schedule all this stuff. I have to schedule and make sure I've got the time for it. I can't just jump in my car and make it happen quickly at the last minute.
The world is getting less and less perceiver all the time. Everything's sewn up. It's
that's an example of a problem switch.
All the edges, all the ways that you can kind of exploit little things in between in order to be a perceiver, a lot of those things are going away. It's really bad. It's like, can you be late for the airport like you could pre 9/11? Nope. I remember in the late 90s rushing to a flight where basically somebody like dropped me off at the front and I literally ran all the way from, like with my baggage in hand, I just ran from the front of the airport all the way to my gate and then just like barely made it on. And it was like like a 6-minute process or something. Yeah. That is just there's just no way. It's like you're late if you're an hour early. And it's like, it's all sewn up. No, I was tagging a while back. You said something about Sam Altman saying that, there's a philosophy that we're all living in one big simulation. And he said that based on some of the work that they're doing with ChatGPT and OpenAI and all that stuff, that he was saying there's like the seams are cracking or something, you said?
Yeah, he was just basically saying, I don't know what it is, but I can tell something is happening.
Like they're tuning into something that is, we don't know what it is because we don't have instruments for it yet. And it made me think of a million years ago. I've said this to you many times. I don't think I've ever said it on the podcast because I don't actually remember all of the specifics. And so if somebody presses me, I won't be able to back it up. I just remember it happening. And I don't have a very good memory, so I'm introverted, sensing inferior. That means that I'm uncertain about some of my memories, and this would be one of them. But it's stuck with me for so long, and that is whichever field of study studies sort of the math of the universe. So I don't think that they were they might have been astrophysicists, I don't know, but it was like whoever or like whatever is studying sort of the cosmos and all of the mathematical equations that go into sort of understanding planetary alignment, not alignments, but like planetary trajectories and whatever else is in that field, because I don't know. And I'll get more uncertain as I talk because I don't know all the things. I just remember that the university that this like sort of think tank was working with and for, the university set up this press conference, and the professor that was speaking to the, to all of the reporters, you could tell that he didn't really want to be there, but he was there because it had been set up and they had to have this press release, right? And maybe they were putting out a paper, or who knows, but he basically just said, and I suspect he had INTJ preferences because he was just like really impatient with the entire thing, but he was also trying to be like very chill and very cool. And he said, the more we study the math of the universe, the more it looks like code. And all the reporters that were there in this press release or whatever, like immediately, of course, conflated that with design.
Well, they start applying meaning to it.
Immediately. That's
Talk
right.
about existential things and
Correct.
Intuition. We immediately try to make meaning of the things we get, information.
Right. And this is like I want to say that I saw this thing probably 25 years ago. So this was like a long time ago.
Sure.
And so immediately they're all like, well, are you trying to say that the universe is designed? And every time somebody would like ask a question like that, he just would like kind of sigh patiently and be like, I'm not saying anything. I'm just saying. Right. The more we study the math of the universe, the more it looks like code.
Yeah.
And that really stuck with me because I'm like, well, that kind of makes sense. It would kind of make sense that consciousness that got birthed from this universe would tap into whatever is sort of the substrate of it, like eventually as a reflection of the universe back to itself, eventually would sort of tap into whatever is the construction that it's based off of. And we would have our own iteration of it, which we call code, right? Like computer code. But when you mention how people who are working with AI are going like, something feels like we're cracking into something. It immediately makes me think, well, yeah, if you're working with the most sophisticated code that ends up also being, artificial intelligence or general intelligence or whatever is like the next iterations.
Yeah.
It's going to, it makes sense that it would start sort of giving us instruments or tools to look into, well, what's really going on in this universe? Like what's really happening underneath the surface?
Yeah.
If it looks like code and we create code and our code is getting pretty stinking sophisticated.
Yeah.
Are we getting close to kind of almost like tuning into or touching a little bit of, God's eyeball, so to speak, like kind of getting into that piece.
Yeah.
And so I think that it's fascinating. And it doesn't necessarily, just like that one dude, he's like, I'm not saying anything. I'm just saying, right? I'm just saying it looks like code. And then he got out of there pretty fast. And so the reporters were left to interpret it however they wanted to. But that said, it's like, I'm not saying, I feel the same way. I'm like, I'm not saying anything. I'm just saying that we're about to enter a time period of like mass existential dysregulation. What does that mean? Does that mean that everybody's going to lose their mind? And it's like, I'm not saying anything. I'm just saying that's what it feels like to me. It feels like we're going to enter a time period where we are asking questions that used to be mental scratches we wanted to itch, right? Like, or itches we wanted to scratch, rather. It's like these things, like philosophy for the last how many thousands of years that we've been writing down our ideas around it has been a curiosity. But it feels like we're going to enter a time period where existential philosophy is no longer simply a curiosity that the human mind wants to solve, right? It's going to feel like it has weight and we need, like we're going to seek answers because we have to, we have to solve problems with the answers that we come up with, or at least hold the paradoxes or understand something that's a little more underneath the surface. And until we do, like, we're going to feel like, we're going to kind of feel like it's like, well, why do we wash our hands when we go from patient to patient on the Civil War field? It's like, well, because of germ theory. And it's like, what's germ theory? It's like we're going to start needing answers to these things because we're going to start hitting things like that, where it's like they were invisible before, but now we see them, and make sure to wash your hands so you don't give sepsis to everybody, right? It's like, but we're going to be doing that with like sort of the bigger philosophical questions of existentialism. So anyway.
We've already had some of this happen. I mean, if you look back in the 19th century, again, the Millerites look up in the sky, and in the, I forget, 1800 something, there's tons of like shooting stars happening. Like
the 1870s.
Like all the time, like these astrological events, there's comets and all this. And, different groups here in America and all around the world are looking up at the heavens going, the end of the world is coming. We feel, basically they didn't have these words, but they're saying we're existentially dysregulated. we need to turn toward God. And here's my version of what that looks like. So this time around, I mean, when I hear Sam Altman and all this stuff, what I see is, this code base. I guess that's like the most NT way of thinking about it.
Yeah.
But this is the first time in human history we've ever had the idea of code.
Right.
Like that's a new thing in the last 50 to 100 years at that level. Like we haven't had code yet. Like that's a very new, very new idea.
Yeah.
So to compare the universe to computer code, it could be appropriate. I don't know, but it feels like we're coming into the known spaces and we're rubbing up against the edges of something spiritual. And
yeah,
maybe
I would say that's
spiritual
true.
could be a code base of some sort. That's what all the NTs want it to be, because then they can understand it. It'll feel more familiar to them if it's a computer styled code running. It'll feel less ethereal, I think. And so, but for me, it feels less ethereal to put it on spiritual terms. So I wonder if we're all going to existentially bring it on the terms that we can understand it, the channels we understand it. So feelers are going to probably put it on more feeling terms. Thinkers are going to put them on thinking terms. We're going to try to make sense of this existential framework with the tools that we bring inside of our personalities.
Well, I'd add one more level to that it might not just be cognitively based, it might also be consciously based. Like if you look at it through the Graves model or spiral dynamics, which is also a model that we've referenced many times on the podcast. So go back and look that up. I would say that like in like Graves level 6 or green in spiral dynamics, I don't care if you're an NT or an NF, you're going to want to make it more mystical.
Yeah.
Right. Because like everybody who goes through 6, whether or not they become, like it's very common for people to exit 5 or orange, enter 6 green, and go from being an atheist to like an agnostic, or go from an atheist to a spiritualist.
Yeah.
And it's because like that's what 6 is about. 6 is sort of about like attuning to something that's sort of bigger, global, less answer based, less problem solving, more sort of navel gazing, more
all voices are heard and represented, and you bring more egalitarian,
and you're saying yes to more of these ideas,
or ecological. I think all these.
Yeah, well, it's like where we get phrases like other ways of knowing is a very 6 concept.
Yes,
and so it might not just be like thinking versus feeling, because I wouldn't even just say NTs and NFs. I would also say STs and SFs.
Sure.
But it's like, I think that how much territory we're taking in and how much we're willing to listen to. And then 7 or yellow, Graves level 7 or spiral dynamics yellow, sort of eschews the 6 idea. And then it goes back to, and like it sort of bumps up into systems thinking, but it doesn't completely lose the spiritual tone.
Yeah.
So it like sort of weaves spirituality into a concept of systems. And so, or tries to merge them together. So it's like, we're also in this hockey sticking of technology. What we're also going to see is probably somewhat of a hockey sticking of consciousness expansion. We're going to see people go through Graves levels much faster as well. And so, so that will also be actually, you'd think that would be a positive thing, but that all by itself is also going to be dysregulating.
The thing that's going to happen is right now, humanity's kind of in the middle of the bell curve. And the edges
sort of, yeah.
Well, the edges are where the smaller population distributions are. And what's going to happen is that bell curve is going to drop and it's going to go out to the edges. So you're going to have people like, the people that complain about things like government control or inequalities and stuff, like solutions are on their way for this. Like Bitcoin, for example, is like a decentralized store of value.
Yeah. Blockchain.
It's going to be like gold. Well, not just blockchain, Bitcoin specifically. It's going to be like gold. It's going to store value.
Right.
It's got a finite supply, and it's going to, like, people right now, instead of like railing against a law or something in your country or that you don't like, if you could just put more attention to buying your own sovereignty for the future, because there's going to be a group of people that do that. They're going to break away from the rest of us.
Yeah.
And then just like you said, a consciousness breakaway. What's going to happen, I think, is you're going to have 2 humanities on this planet. Kind of the haves and have-nots of the ones that were able to make it through the dysregulation, the existential crisis that's coming, and on the other side, and then everybody else. And this group of people is going to have to figure out how to take care of this group of people, because they're not going to be able to do it for themselves. So we're also going to kind of have this responsibility for people that actually make it through to say, do we want to just let our fellow humans crash and burn and suffer? Or are we going to work on solutions for all of humanity? And I think this is, I can't see a scenario. I mean, of course, anything can happen, But I see this very, there's not everybody that I talk to is thinking the things I'm thinking. And I'm going, you're not prepared for the world that's coming, are you?
Right.
So I'm like, okay, well, that means that there's going to be more responsibility on people like me that are preparing for it and thinking about it. Now, maybe I'm not prepared, but at least I'm not going to be as surprised as maybe somebody that's like, what? How did this happen?
Yeah, we've realized.
How did our fiat money system crash? And now we're using Bitcoin. When did this why did no one tell me this?
Yeah.
It's like, you can see the rumblings now, for example.
Yeah. Well, there was something I said earlier today. I said, and I was like, we need to tell everybody this. Everybody who's an NP needs to know this, that the disadvantage to extroverted intuition or exploration versus introverted intuition or perspectives, the disadvantage to extroverted
These are both
intuition.
intuitive processes that live in our personality. Just in case you're new to personality,
Correct.
They're used by two different personality types. Everybody's got one of these in their consciousness.
Right, as like a preferred style of intuition.
That's right.
And but we have access to both. It's just
which is our preference.
Yeah, one we like and one we don't like as much.
And so you and me have the extroverted intuitive one.
Correct. And in what I realized earlier today, I was like, I can count a million times where I saw something coming and just didn't do anything about it.
Yes.
Because it was like one of the possibilities.
Yeah.
But it was like if I was really being honest with myself, my introverted intuition or perspectives was like, no, that's the one that's going to happen. That's the probability. Yeah. But because I don't favor probability thinking, I favor possibility thinking. I have a tendency to like not act on it or take right action when I see this thing coming down the line. So I've made predictions. Man, how many predictions have I made? Like I'm like, okay, this is going to happen by this year with this person. And then like we get 7 years down the line and I'm like, see, I was right. So at a certain point, I learned to start trusting that. And then I went, I can't just trust it. I also have to take action on it. Yeah. I was like, that's what the ENTJs know. Because I'm always like, why was I right? My introverted thinking's like, was I right?
This would be a great question for you watching or listening right now.
Yeah.
When you tune into your intuition, do you trust it? Whether you're intuitive or a sensor, do you tend to trust it? Well, which style do you use, first of all? Do you use introverted intuition or perspective, or do you do extroverted intuition or exploration? Do you trust it, and then do you take action based on that trust? Or you just trust it and then put it in the closet?
Yeah. And then track it.
I would love to know this.
And then, because what I've had a tendency to do, and it's taken me like 47 years to figure it out, is that what I have a tendency to do is I like track it and then I go, see, I was right. And then like, that just makes me happy. And I'm like, okay, but like the first time.
No extroverted thinking results though.
None.
You're just right in your own head.
Like I saw that the tree was going to bear fruit and I was like, see, I told you it was going to bear fruit, but did I go grab any? No, of course not, because I'm stupid. But the first time I had somebody explain cryptocurrency to me was 2010.
Yeah.
2010, 2011. And it was an INTJ friend of mine, very good friend of mine. And he explained it to me because he had just heard about it. Because he went to different parts of the web than I did. And as soon as I heard it, I went, that's the way of the future. Immediately my brain went, that's the way of the future. That's what's going to happen. And then, man, when did you go to CryptoCon? Like 2018?
Yeah.
And you came back and you told me all about all the things that you had seen at CryptoCon. And I'm like, oh yeah, that's absolutely the way of the future. Ask me when I started investing in crypto.
You still haven't started investing.
Well, because I relied on you to do it because you did it. But I was like, we're doing it. But it was like you took all the action because you have extroverted thinking or effectiveness. And I just like sit back and I just like let things happen. But now I have thought about things like, well, if I had invested that early, would I have sold it for profit by this point? Of course I would have, right? I'm pretty sure I would have done that. Or I would have been one of those people, God bless them, the people who like bought 100 Bitcoin
and then lost their
codes or whatever, or their access keys. That would have totally been me. I would have absolutely been that person. I would have like 100 Bitcoin someplace.
Be like a billionaire.
Yeah.
On a drive somewhere that you can't get it off.
And it's like burying treasure in your backyard and like losing the map. And I'd be like, that would totally be me. So in some ways it's probably best that I didn't, but I was like, that's absolutely something I have to contend with, is the fact that I see things coming. I just don't do it. I just sit on them. I just don't do anything about it. And now that I'm like, and a ripe old age and many opportunities have already gone by, I finally learned when you see something coming, take action on it. Actually do something about it to prepare. And that's why, to go back to this conversation around regulation and dysregulation.
There you go.
Yeah, see, I'm tying it all in a nice little bow. I see this coming. I see it coming as like almost, it's almost being sort of dharmically whispered to me.
Yes, me
like
too.
You might have a Rosetta Stone of regulation because not just of that, but also the number one question we get from people after help me figure out what my personality type is so I guess it's the number 2 question. But the biggest question we get from
60% of the time, it works every time.
60% of the time, it works every time.
The number one question we get after our first question is actually the number 2 question.
Okay,
so number 2 question.
The penultimate question we get is, how do I get my friends and family into this?
Yeah.
How do I find like somebody to talk to about all this stuff? Because I've
mapped myself. There's so much power here. Why does no one else see this? Could you please talk with me about it? And be like, God, get out of here, man. I don't want to talk to you.
Yeah.
But people say this. It's like,
Oh, I thought you were like, that was our response to them.
No,
nobody wants to talk to you, not even us.
No, I'm saying that would be nice. That's probably why people listen to this podcast often, is they work,
totally.
It's conversational style. So you listening or watching get to kind of be part of a convo happening.
Listen, if everybody that learned type could proselytize at least 1 or 2 other people into it, we wouldn't have a podcast. Nobody would be listening, because like most people are listening because this is their outlet for conversation around this topic.
Sure.
So, I mean, maybe some people would listen to, but I don't think we'd have the numbers we have had over the last 11 years. But that said, when we're tuning into this, and this is an idea, and maybe we're even being kind of dumb talking about it, because maybe we should type this IP and get a paper written and all that stuff first. But I do want to share it with the world, because I think it's really important. Every time I explain this concept to somebody, like, they immediately get it. They immediately get
Absolutely.
it. Like there's, and what the concept I'm talking about is the one that we did the 5-part series on, that there's 4 different kinds of dysregulation. It's somatic, emotional, cognitive, and existential. That there are 2 different ways that we can be somatically dysregulated, 2 ways we can be emotionally, cognitively, and existentially dysregulated, and they're mapped 1-to-1 with the cognitive functions. And they
our
create
map of personality.
the map of personality. And what's interesting is it's not just a map of personality, it's a map of reality. Like, that's why it works. That's why it's so effective, because you said it before, that it's the way that we take in new information and make decisions. And that's how we've always communicated what cognitive functions were, so people can understand them. Like the 8 Jungian functions that are found in the book Psychological Types, chapter 10, and that are the basis of the Myers-Briggs system. We've always explained them as like the perceiving and the judging functions, how we take information in, how we make decisions. But the truth is that they're 8 representations that encapsulate all of reality. Right? They're like, there are experiences now, there are experiences before, they are our projection of what's happening in the future, and there are understanding of time and possibility outside of a timeline. All right. So they're basically like, those are 4 different arenas of how we experience time, how we experience and learn things. We learn things by personally experiencing. We learn things by ruminating over what we've experienced, or ruminating over what somebody else has.
Yeah.
We learn things. We learn the unknown by running a simulation in our head, right? Which is running a simulation that helps us sort of map the world internally, but we can play with it then, and time and personal experience don't have to come into it, and we can run a simulation and go, that's probably what will happen. And then we also do so through iteration and experimentation and being willing to take risks and chances on things that have never existed before, and pushing innovation forward. All right. These are ways that we experience reality. And all but personality type tells us is, which one of those are you pre-wired to be fascinated by?
More than the others.
More than the others. That's right. Because they exist already out there. Personality is just, what are you pre-wired to be fascinated by? And when it comes to the feeling and thinking functions, it's like, there's a problem solving element, which is thinking, and there's a humanizing element, which is feeling. And when it comes to problem solving, we either solve real problems in the outside world, right? We figure them out here on a timeline, or we bring all of that theoretically inside, and where we aren't limited by resource and timeline, and we can sort of run theory inside of our head as much as we want to. And we start to create systems inside, and then those systems start to help us sort of codify belief.
Yes.
Right. And this is how it works. You know, like how things work is very extroverted thinking or effectiveness, and how it works, whatever it is very introverted thinking or accuracy. Right. And both of those are looking for leverage points, and they're looking for like the best answer and clean data and all that stuff. But those represent two different parts of humanity, or like of reality, which is the getting things done out here part, like the problem solving that we all have to do to get things done out here. And then the beliefs that we carry with us that are preloaded for how to see things or how to think about things and how to process them so that we become better problem solvers when the need arises.
Yes.
Those are two different aspects of reality. Which one are you more pre-wired to be focused on, the outer world or the inner world? And then there's two ways of humanizing. I humanize myself and I humanize us. I humanize you, which also means humanizing us. So am I more pre-wired to be focused on the relational aspect, like the rapport that we build and what's going on for you and humanizing you and sort of understanding how I'm humanized through our relationship? Or am I more focused on like what's going on for me and humanizing me and making sure that I'm represented in all of it? And so you take all 8 of those things, the sensing, the intuition, the thinking, and the feeling. You take all of that, and it's really hard to find an aspect of reality that can't be sort of, and I don't even mean shoehorned, like neatly placed in one of those 8 categories.
Yeah.
And so all personality type tells us is it's like, okay, these are 8 realities or 8 slices of reality, right? 8 aspects of them. Which one can you not stop thinking about, right? Because they already exist. It's just we're pre-wired to be fascinated by them. So the map of personality, all by itself is like attuned. It is a meeting of ourselves with reality as it's already organized and set up. And regulation and dysregulation being a part of that is like, okay, and which aspect of reality are you struggling with your relationship to? Like which aspect of reality is kind of triggering you right now? And you don't know how to handle it. And you don't have a measure of self-control around it, right? Like you can't control your reaction or response to it for whatever reason. And so it's like, it's not just a tidy theory. Does that make sense? It's like all of this grounds it and makes it very real.
Yes.
And then when you talk about dysregulation, which is a topic that almost everybody's fascinated by right now, and then you use this map to sort of explain the areas of dysregulation and how to get regulated, is like 100% of people I've talked to about this, even people who I've tried to talk about type with before and are like, I don't care, just tell me all the things that I need to know to say something to my husband to make it good, right? They don't care about the theory. As soon as I start talking about it in this terms, they get it immediately.
I would say that dysregulation is the killer app for personality types. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's the application that takes everything we talk about all the time on this podcast. We've talked about since 2014, every week, week in and week out. It brings it down to a simple 4-channel system: body, heart, mind, spirit, intuition.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And it talks about the things that go off, and it asks us to basically find the channel of the dysregulation and where's it bleeding onto other channels, and then work at it at the channel it's happening. Mm-hmm. So I'm sitting here going, this is where we're going to try to reorganize Personality Hacker to be directed toward. Yep. It's such a killer application. It's such a useful tool. We've used it with our client work. You've used it in coaching, personal one-to-one coaching. Yep. We both have used it in our group coaching. We're using it. You're teaching it in your personality dynamics course. Right. So personality dynamics is for therapists and coaches to take all this stuff and apply it in their clinical work. Yeah. Kind of like you do in coaching and I do in group coaching. Yep. And the idea is, I think that like our profiler training is going to be helping people map this in others and help them find their dysregulation channel. Mm-hmm. Our personality life path is going to be still about, setting up your system map of your life and moving forward, but it's going to have an element of dysregulation in here too. I want to have another course, I think another flagship that's just like these other two, that's going to address dysregulation in life directly. Mm-hmm. I think in the next few months, I'd like to get one up on the calendar. Yeah. Start talking about this. This is so important. Yeah. And everywhere I turn, I wanted to talk about something else in this podcast, but I'm going to save it for another podcast. Okay. We've ended up talking about existential dysregulation here. Right. But, I was reading a book recently, and I'll mention another podcast where the person basically starts down the road of this. There's 4 areas you need to have like something in your life, and it's body and heart. And then they go off the rails. They don't talk about the cognition. They don't talk about the existential. Right. And so those two are missing from a lot of these maps.
Well,
And they're not missing, like, I just don't think people are thinking about them in the same channel. It seems obvious my body and my emotions need to be regulated.
I mean, you're probably going someplace, so I don't want to derail you too much. But I think the reason why the somatic and the emotional are almost always talked about is this: no matter what kind of dysregulation we experience, the body is the instrument. So we're going to feel it somatically, and we telegraph it emotionally.
That's right.
So those two things become obvious. Cognitive and existential dysregulation they don't have as many markers to them.
Not as many external markers.
Correct. And
so they don't have like a dashboard on your car where there's like when the engine's about ready to overheat and you can see the gauge. Mm-hmm. Our emotions and our body tell us those things. But cognitively, even if we did have a mechanism for it, we wouldn't want to feel quote unquote stupid by saying we're dysregulated cognitively. We take an ego hit when we admit it or when we go there. At least I do. I know that I feel silly if I have to admit that you're dumb. You can't figure things out. That's why, you're overwhelmed by information. Our ego won't let us. And then existential, there is more space for that, but the answer is always like go to church or spiritual or go see like a shaman or something. Usually it's like something it's more like esoteric, and it's like go purify. Usually it's purity channel. Go purify yourself. You've angered the gods in some way. Yeah. Like, I mean, that's often the message, however that message is communicated. That's kind of a meta message.
And I think too that we've so a lot of psychology has been, because it's still a field in its infancy.
100 years and so.
Like 150 years maybe of like really, really like you start mapping back these words that we use commonly in the collective unconscious these days that are psychological terms, but you go back to map like where they were first mentioned, and it's like maybe 120, 150 years tops, basically. And so there have been psychological principles that have been woven through spirituality and philosophy throughout the ages, but psychology as like a field of study is still pretty much in its infancy. And fields of study in their infancy are almost always pushed forward by people who are intuitives, right? Because they're kind of that's the point of intuition, is to break new ground to some extent, right? Because you're willing to venture into the unknown without feeling deeply uncertain. And so
I would say break new ground in a particular way.
Well, yeah, in like a theoretical way.
Yeah, sensors are breaking new ground maybe physically with like sports and athleticism. Like,
absolutely.
I just want to be complete in the thought.
Yeah, I meant like when it comes to fields of theory.
Sure.
Right, yeah. Thank you for...
It tends to be intuitive thinker, like intuitive people, like the way people think intuitively. Intuition, typically, it still might be in the hands of a sensor, but the intuition's what's driving is what I hear you saying.
Correct. But at the same time, it's almost always like somebody who is a lead intuitive, like somebody who's leading with intuition as a first function.
Yep.
They're almost always like the first person. Right. And it might get in the hands of people with sensory preferences very quick, but we talked about the difference between unknown and uncertain. Mm-hmm. When you are wired towards intuition, you're wired towards the unknown, but not to be uncertain about it. But the further down intuition is, the more unknown and uncertain get conflated with each other. And so to be willing to enter a space of like theoretical unknown.
Yeah.
But not have this uncertainty that throttles that, like especially if everybody's like, oh, you're a crazy person, right? It's going to be a lead intuitive usually.
Yeah.
Not always. But I mean, like, I don't think Freud was lead intuitive.
Well, I think of Bitcoin, Satoshi, the entity or person that created the white paper that set up the protocol and the network for Bitcoin, like the math around it probably was lead intuitive, to your point.
Right. Yeah. It's like
it's a very and it was very uncertain. There was no insurances, anything was going to happen from it.
Yes. Yeah.
It was an idea that was put in the world, and it was such a good idea, it caught fire.
Right.
And it seems like it's going to be the winning idea in that world.
Correct. And so the reason why I say that, though, is, it's hard to communicate how important sensors are and how much love I actually throw at them. So when I make a comment that feels like it has intuitive bias, it's actually not me diminishing people who lead with sensing or have a preference for sensing at all.
I know your heart, Antonia.
Yeah.
I know you wouldn't do that.
Not even the tiniest little bit. But this is, what else is intuition but this?
Sure.
That's kind of its purpose. It's kind of its point, right? So we have to give credit where credit's due. So that said, the thing I was going to say actually does reference the sensory piece, which is again, it's hard for intuitives to remember to put intuition into their theories. It's the vehicle, but they forget to place it into it. And so what ends up happening is, particularly in the psychological realm, where introversion or introverted intuition or perspectives in particular has been the driving force in studies of the mind. Not even extroverted intuition, like introverted intuition has clearly dominated the psychological space for so long that it would make sense that somatic dysregulation, or how things that are dysregulating impact the body, would be very obvious to people who have NJ preferences, because that's the thing they're ignoring and neglecting. Does that make sense?
I think they're going to develop a lot of work around because they've had to figure it out for themselves.
Correct. And so the soma becomes obvious, right? And then, and because we store it in there, the whole concept of the body keeps the score and all of that, right? It's like if you've ever been to a masseuse or somebody who's given you a massage and they like work on a section and then all of a sudden you're crying and you're like, why am I crying? And it's like, oh, because, well, I guess that's where that experience, that unprocessed emotional trauma got held in the body. I guess that's what that's, it's in my shoulders or whatever. So, so the body keeps the score, and that becomes obvious because it's the instrument that we're experiencing everything with. And then like I said, we telegraph our dysregulation emotionally. And so those become really, like, they're the most obvious. But like you mentioned with cognitive, I mean, I guess it could be that we don't want to be observed or thought of as dumb or whatever. But I think the reason why cognitive dysregulation is not as obvious is because we get anxious, right? And so we're telegraphing it through an emotion. So it feels like it's an emotional dysregulation. But the way that you can tell the difference between emotional dysregulation and cognitive dysregulation is that when you calm your emotions down, you're still dysregulated, right? It hasn't solved the problem. And then I think the reason why existential dysregulation is just not even, the reason why I'm using that phrase is because in my research, it was like a footnote under cognitive dysregulation. It was called existential coping. And I'm like, oh no, it's not just coping. It's like, it's not just something that is nestled under cognitive dysregulation. It's like, it's a whole different thing.
Yes.
And the reason why we never see it is because we just don't have that many tools to do anything about it. And so a person can stay in a place of cognitive dysregulation for a long time, even working with a therapist or working with, somebody who's like people who are trying to help them, because it's being sort of like the prescriptions are all around soma and emotions. And while those can be very helpful, the existential part just kind of, it's like this hanging thing, right?
Yes.
That's just kind of like a thing that I mean, it's like at a certain point you go, well, I guess I'm just not solving that, so I guess I'll just put it over here, right? And so so I feel like it's like a really powerful awareness to go, oh, well, maybe it's actually not all these other things that I thought it was. Maybe it's like something that is its own beast. It's like its own thing. And so what do we do about that? And what's so beautiful about recognizing that is the second you can, a good diagnostic creates a good prescription. The second you can go, oh, that's what's going on. Now you go, okay, so what is every single exercise, tool, skill, like everything I need in order to address that?
Yes.
And that's where the functions come in, because now you can start creating exercises, tools, strategies, and skills that are appropriate to the functions. Because it's like, well, how do I exercise my introverted intuition if I'm an ENJ?
Yeah.
Might be a very similar question, or have a very similar answer rather, as what do I do when my introverted intuition or perspectives is dysregulated?
Yeah.
And so now it's like, it just creates this really clean little map. And then you add type into there. So then you've got like the descending order of uncertainty. So it's like where are we more likely to be dysregulated depending on our personality type, and what are we likely to do with it and all that stuff. It's like I really feel like this is this might be one of the most important concepts that we stumbled upon, at least for us.
Well, and I think this is the way you bring Jungian things into therapy.
Totally.
I mean, Jungians are the original therapists in a way. Like, I mean, Carl Jung was
analyst, yeah.
He was doing therapy with his clients before therapy was therapy. Like, we didn't have therapy.
Analysis, yeah.
We didn't have therapy in 1912 or 08 or whatever. Like, that was...
Well, kind of. I mean, Freud was trying to do it.
But they didn't call it that.
Yeah, it was like analysis or... Yeah.
And these guys, I mean, they were doing
it was like, tell me about your mother.
extreme things.
Yeah.
Like, in some of the Jungian... Like, some of the guys, the people that learn from Jung, and, apocryphally, they were doing crazy stuff. Like if somebody was suicidal, they would, they would drive really fast in a vehicle to scare them to death.
Yeah,
like
they
that
were
kind of
doing
thing.
a lot of experimental things that may or may not be considered appropriate these days.
Yeah. They probably worked better than things now because everything has to be so sterile and so clinical now.
Yeah, we've definitely sanitized
So
everything.
I think that Jungian, I think, so what I hope is that the clinical work of like therapists, coaches, people that work with people can get a map that can help them bring more Jungian concepts into their work.
Yeah.
Because when you have a map and you go, okay, this person is upset emotionally, but every time I calm their emotions down, it never fixes the problem.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm going to look at the map based on their personality type and say, oh, I'm talking to somebody like me, an EFP,
right,
ENFP, and maybe this isn't emotional. Maybe they actually can handle regulating their emotions more. Maybe they're crying desperately from help. They don't have the map to know this is cognitive for them.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, do you realize what kind of unlock this would be?
Yeah.
Now, if the business model will allow it, I don't know if therapy is designed to keep it going for long periods of time in order for like a money reason. Like if there's funding from a company or something, maybe there's reasons why it takes forever to, you were the therapist for years working on something, but it feels like coaches can get results a lot faster. And I think it's because the process is different and they're using different tools.
Yeah.
And so I would love to, how do we get more tools into like hands of therapists that can use this for a map? Not to take any specialty away from people that do, there's certain types of therapy and certain types of things that people do to help others.
Yeah.
And I think all of those are useful, like cognitive behavioral therapy. I don't think this map would conflict with anything that's already running.
Well, that's
the other thing I love about it.
That's the beauty of Jung, actually, is that it's sort of, in some ways, it's sort of open source. It's like you can do Jungian work and it doesn't have to conflict with any paradigm. It doesn't have to conflict with any religion. It doesn't have to conflict with like any philosophy or like you can.
It's self-referencing and neutral.
Yeah.
It's such a great tool.
It's such a great tool.
All right. So this podcast went a little all over the place from where I thought it was going to go, but that's okay. It was a little bit more free-form discussion. I think it kind of ended up, I'm not exactly sure what we're going to call this or talk about, how we'll package it for you listening or watching right now. But
in some ways it's kind of, it's sort of a statement of intent.
Yeah.
It's like in some ways, like, I'm writing a paper right now with Dr. John Beebe. Hopefully I'll get those into psychological journals. And I feel like I mentioned, it almost has like it has a dharmic sense for me. And so in some ways it's almost a statement of intent that like, this is the thing we're going to be, I already can't unsee it and stop thinking about it. Like I already, like you said, I weave it into everything now. It's like a part of all of our programs. It's woven into everything we talk about now.
It's like AI, it's getting its fingers in everything.
It's getting its fingers in everything. And I think it's because I'm pretty sure it's going to be like one of the things that we're going to need the most in the future.
Yes.
And, we had this conversation before, and I know we're going to close up because we've gone a little long, but we are missing self-control in this world. And I think one of the reasons we're missing self-control is because at a certain point, we started to conflate the concept of self-control with suppression. Like, it's like control yourself ended up being
denial.
I'm
denying myself the foods I really want to eat. Mm-hmm. For what? For why? Like, it's not it didn't feel like self-discipline. It felt like self-punishment for a lot of people.
Right. Or I'm denying myself healthy emotional processing because I'm being told to control my emotions or
not
control my
scene.
thoughts.
Yeah,
don't cause a scene. Control your thoughts. Don't think impure thoughts. Like, there was a lot of, like, the word control all by itself brings along with it a feeling of suppression. And so but I think what we did is we threw the baby out with the bathwater. We went, I don't want to be suppressed, so I'm not going to be controlled, so I'm not going to build the skill of self-control because that's self-denial, that's self-suppression. So I think what happened is the word regulation or dysregulation ended up becoming our replacement for it. And I think it's a better word, personally, right? To regulate yourself is another way of saying to have some control over the processes that are happening inside of you.
Well, it definitely sounds more process. Control sounds more purity.
Outcome. Yeah.
Outcome and purity.
Yeah.
Like, I'm trying to purify myself, not just refine the process. And there's like, it's almost a morality to it. Mm-hmm. like self-control or self-discipline.
Yeah. And regulate feels like there's like a sort of a balancing act that's happening at any given time. You know, like you talked about the needle on the car, you know, like it's one of the things that's measuring in your dashboard. And regulation, it's like, oh, are you over in the red? Well, then you're going to have to like kind of bring it down a little bit to regulate in the center. And it also indicates that there's no necessarily like specific thing you're trying to accomplish other than just get yourself back into balance. You know, like self-control has a lot of
push away this bad thing that I don't want in my life. It's like guarding against something.
Yeah.
It's more moralistic framework.
Yeah, it feels kind of gatekeeping. And
like
regulation.
I'm trying to have self-control for God. Like, you know, like that's why I'm doing it for God. That's kind of like unconsciously how we say it to ourselves.
Right. Or for society or for
God in the lower G, you know what I mean? Like whatever is our authority structure.
Yes, exactly. And so I think regulation is a way better word. I don't know if there's going to be like a better word that comes down the pike. And I know that regulation right now is kind of, you know, we go through these, because we're all armchair psychologists, we go through these faddish terms and ideas in psychology. But I think this is, I think self-regulation is like a really good way of replacing the concept of self-control, which we actually desperately need as both individuals and as people groups. We desperately need to be able to regulate ourselves and to control our processes enough so that we're showing up the way we want to be showing up, in the way that's healthy for ourselves, in the way that's healthy for our relationships and healthy for other people. And we all kind of, as opposed to spiraling down, we start spiraling up. That is desirable for humans. And I think it's desirable for individuals, but we don't want to do it at the cost of like suppression. And so this idea of self-regulation is desperately needed, and especially in times that push us out of a regulated space for whatever reason. And so I don't think, for me right now, it does not feel faddish. It feels like a new way of saying a concept that got sort of like a lot of barnacles of meaning attached to it. But self-control is something that all religions teach. Almost every meditation practice, right, to control one's thoughts, right, to watch them as opposed to, you know, don't believe everything you think is actually a self-control statement. Don't believe everything you feel is a self-control statement.
Buddhism, that might be one of the best cognitive, I'm realizing that's a cognitive regulation
100%
religious framework.
Right.
It's mostly designed to help you regulate your cognition.
Well, and unattachment.
Yeah.
So
a little existential. So that's actually probably why it's sought after among like post religious people that are smart thinkers or intuitively wired, whether they're sensors or intuitives. They just have like this sense of something.
Yeah.
They find religions like that because it's a philosophy that helps with those two channels that aren't often talked about.
Correct.
Because I think in Christianity, it's like, don't regulate your thoughts, just make them submissive to God. Don't regulate your existentialism, your existential thinking. Just, you don't need to worry about that. God's got that handled. Now regulate your emotions and your body. It's like, that's very Judeo-Christian.
Well,
and so I think in the West, we've got this concept of the other two shouldn't even be addressed. Like just submit it to God. That's the other two.
Yes.
And then your emotions, that's where God allows you to work on it. And, you know, your soma, you don't be gluttonous. You regulate by being morally, eat healthy and don't be gluttonous.
Yeah, don't drink too much.
You know, that's one of the bad sins, etc. So there's like, there's regulation put into sin and iniquity and all this stuff.
Well, and I mean, not to throw too much shade at Christianity though, because Christianity is also taught or tuned into the very important concept of submission.
Yeah.
Like we think of submission as a dirty word, which is actually one of the reasons why we're so oppressed. like it's like, if you can't, it's the whole Jungian concept of the shadow. It's like what you resist persists, you know, the idea of don't hit the pole, you know, when you're in a car accident or you're spinning out, and it's like, don't hit the pole, and then you hit the pole. It's like whenever we try to repress things, whenever we try to get away from them, then they now start to dominate our lives. And so we, as strong individualists, particularly in the West, and as people who don't want to be oppressed, right? And so we have turned the concept of submission into a dirty word, into a dirty concept. But there is a reason why submission exists, and most of us need a little bit more submission in our life. Now, does that mean as a woman submit to a man? Does it mean as a citizen submit to a government? Does it mean like all the things we think about when submission comes in? No, it doesn't necessarily mean any of those things, right? But it's like the concept of itself is something where we like sometimes we need to submit to our own better thinking. Sometimes we need to submit to our higher self, right? Or a more true version of ourself. Like sometimes we have to kind of let go of our ego because like the inability to submit means that we think that this iteration of our ego is like the most important thing in the universe. And it's like, no, it's not actually. It's not at all. So we need to learn the art of submission. But again, that word comes with a bunch of like laden meaning, and then our brain just goes no. And then because it says no, then we don't see the areas where it actually needs to be, you know. And so anyway, but the point of all that, language aside, is it feels like this is this is like a key concept. It's like a core principle that I can't unsee. And so to some extent, this particular podcast is like a statement of intent for me anyway. I mean, I didn't think it was going to be. I didn't know that when we got in. I just started John with you. But at this point, I'm kind of like, yeah, and this is the thing I want to talk about all the time. So don't be surprised if I bring it up.
Yeah, I mean, we've called it personality hacker, and I think the map of personality helps you attune to this. But I want to talk about dysregulation a lot. Mm-hmm. I think there's what I love, and I'll reiterate this and we wrap this up. But I mean, there's the 4 channels, and there's 2 expressions on each channel. That seems very straightforward for people. Yep. We've developed a way so that's, you just have to know what channel it's dysregulated on first. Then we've developed a method for measuring the level of dysregulation. How dysregulated is it? Correct. And, you know, it's kind of a red, yellow, green kind of situation with more nuance, like your dynamic students that are, we're teaching them how to do this with others, so they get a lot more than just like a consumer would for themselves. Would probably be more simple there. So we've got a measuring tool. We have the channels to know which channel it's on, to measure on that channel. And then we're now developing with clients. And in fact, there might be some opportunity soon to workshop with us. I'd love to do this. Maybe bring small groups of people onto some workshopping around each of these 4 channels and workshop some of the techniques and tools we've developed, because I think I've got a pretty good heuristic for diagnosing which channel you're dysregulated on. We have some ideas on how to create some space margin, how to fix it, how to address it, how to know which channel is a counterfeit channel it's coming up on. Like, we're developing all of this stuff. And I think that...
And how to use your personality type to become self-aware of when you become dysregulated. Yeah. How are you going to react?
Like, my major dysregulation for me, I just know is cognitive. Mm-hmm. I know almost 80 to 90% of the time it's cognitively related. And I'm going to express it emotionally. I'm going to feel it in my body. I might even bring it into intuitive existential terms because that's my driver or dominant function. But at the end of the day, it's my cognition that's dysregulated. And that's where the work has to be. It doesn't matter what I do on the other 3 channels until I fix that and work with that and regulate it. It's going to keep bleeding out and making me unregulated at other places.
And because it's your 10-year-old or tertiary function.
Yeah, my personality map helps.
Right. In your car model, we know that because it's that eternal child position, you're going to look to other people to regulate you in your behalf. And that's actually like starting to become aware of where you become dysregulated and you keep it in-house. You go, I'll handle that. Or when you spot other people being dysregulated and you jump in to try to save them. Yeah. Where you become dysregulated and you seek help.
And it's so insidious. Yes. Go ahead.
And where you become dysregulated and you kick the can down the road. Like, your personality type will tell you that.
And it's so insidious because, like, for me, I don't, like, when I try to get help from the outer world, I've learned to do this now directly, but what I would do is I would actually create an emotional problem. Like, this would happen with you. I'd somehow get you into a state of emotional distress by my distress, because it's coming from the cognition. Now you're in an emotional state of distress. Now my emotions can calm down and service and help you regulate your emotions.
Right.
Attempting to get help to regulate my cognition.
Yes.
Because I have no problem regulating my emotions.
Yeah.
But
what a game.
So it's like this master game that I would play to try to get this help on this channel that I needed.
Yep.
And I'm thinking, my God, people need this map. It like solved so many problems in my life, and it's solving them more and more by the day.
Yeah.
And I'm like, and our clients are reporting back stuff, like just incredible results from this. Mm-hmm. We're kind of like, we're sitting on something that might, one of those things that's like, well, if this was that valuable, somebody would have already developed this already at this level.
Yeah.
And so I just like, oh, maybe I'm like and this is also that cognitive. Like, I'm probably the last to think about this. like not yet. And so I'm realizing, no, this is really powerful. It's working with our folks. And I think it's working with myself. And I would love for you to have this map and to be able to go down this road.
Yeah, absolutely.
The best place to start, by the way, I see this is almost the end of every episode. Go get an owner's manual for your personality type. We've got 16 of these on the website, personalityhacker.com. We're going to be adding dysregulation things to these. So
Correct.
if you get that now, it doesn't have a lot of dysregulation in it because this is very new, what's coming. But we're going to be adding more and more dynamic elements into those. Right now, they're core to help you understand your personality type. They're going to help you see the map, to map your car model, your ego, what are technically called egosyntonic cognitive functions. Ooh, that's a head full, but show you loop scripts, setting up an ergonomic life, and then we're going to be adding dysregulation stuff into each one of these.
And common challenges.
Yes.
And
motivations.
Firm fixations.
All sorts of
and
stuff.
all a bunch of stuff that we talk about in the podcast are organized into the owner's manuals.
Yeah.
And we add things to them over time. So.
Yep. So go get one of those for your personality type. I think it's the best place to start, and you're going to benefit from some of the dysregulation stuff we're going to be adding to that. You'll probably be invited to some things. And also just come over to our website. We got tons of resources and all sorts of valuable things there, I think.
A crazy amount of programs, actually.
We do. And I think if you wanted to also go listen to that 5-part series on dysregulation, it is impacting people greatly. We took this was more of a manifesto, like we need to be talking about this more today.
Yeah.
Kind of our intent, like Antonia said. But I'd love to hear from you if this is resonating with you. Do you feel existentially dysregulated, like I mentioned earlier? Do you feel like it's going to be okay? How have you soothed yourself? Is it something you're not thinking about yet? Do you not want to look at it because you don't want to get dysregulated? Everybody's different. I'd love to hear what's coming up for you as you're watching or listening. And again, come over to either personalityhacker.com or directly below this on YouTube or whatever platform you're watching or listening to us on. If there's a comment area, please make comments. YouTube's the best place because that's where I'm at right now, answering comments, and I'm reading a lot of people's stuff. And it's
but
really good
I
stuff.
figured out how to get to the Spotify comments, so I'm reading those now too.
Oh, good.
Yep.
Well, congrats for you, Antonia.
I did it with one simple hack. I logged in and I was like, oh, there they are.
Wow.
So
Mind-blowing.
it was mind-blowing.
All right. My name is Joel Mark Witt,
And I'm Antonia Dodge.
and we'll talk with you on the next Personality Hacker podcast.